So just a couple little fixes. So that back light, the rear brake light, if you remember, this part broke on me. So I ordered this off of Amazon for 10 bucks. I had to just cut it down. This is just a piece of lens repair kit. And then I just cut it to size and put it in there. Used just some electrical tape to kind of hold it till I got the case up. And hopefully that'll stay up. If it falls, we'll have to figure out a better way. But easy enough fix. Not sure what's going on with the hatch. I thought maybe it was the pins were still a little too tight, so I loosened them a little bit more, but it's still getting caught over here. So I got to do a little more investigation on that. And I got the fans working again. So I will do that in a separate one here. Alright, so if you remember, my fans were not working. And I'm not sure if you remember from previous videos. These two relays are for the air conditioning, and they are up under here. So when I pulled them, this is the AC relay. It was rusted in there. And this is the I don't know what you want to call it. It's the fan switch relay. So when I pulled these, my fan stopped working. Inside. So after looking at the electrical, here's why. Now this is only for an 83, I don't know, 84, 85, if it's the same. But when you turn your AC dial, there's power going through this. You'll see from 30 to 87, okay? And there's constant power going through there. When you energize the coil, it cuts this power off. So what that's doing is when you turn your AC on, it generates electricity to the coil, flips the switch to turn off your fans. Because the only fan that should be running is the one that's inside the evaporator box to push the cold air, and it should stop the warm air from coming through from the outside. So when I pulled this, it broke the connection from 30 to 87 because the connection was still good from 30 to 87, whatever that is, I don't know, this or this. But the coil wasn't any good. So that's why I had to replace it. This I am going to replace with my new one. So this is the replacement for that. It looks a little beefier, doesn't it? I'm assuming that will fit. That's supposed to be it, but it looks a little beefier than what was in there. Also, with this one, I just ordered a standard 5-prong relay off of Amazon. So it had these 4, and then it's got one extra one over here. Because I cannot find this number. They no longer make this one. So now what happens is it's making the connection so the fan works. When the power runs, it would switch the connection from here to this one. I think that's going to be fine because I don't think there's any wires where this one goes because there's only wires for these 4 in that. So when I start really pulling apart the AC, I got a spare one of these off of eBay because mine's all rusted. So we'll replace that. We'll replace that. We've already replaced this. And we'll go from there. But you've got to buy, so here's like the other fan switch. So here's the 4-prong, but you'll notice the difference. How that prong is not in the same place. You need one with the prong in the middle. in order to replace this one. I don't think it matters that there's one on the outside. If that gets energized, oh well. It should not matter because there's no wire going to it. But we will see. So once we start really delving into this AC a little bit more, we will we'll get on that. But that's what we ended up doing. I don't want to dig my relay out. I already put it in. Also did the new strip that I painted that I got from Elliott, and then I also put the rubber sides in as well. So hopefully that will cut down on some of the air noise going through the window. But yeah, that is a success. So the engine started running a little hot. So we're gonna try to bleed this again. So we just turned it on. We've got that open. We've got the heat open so it can go into the heater core valve. So we just turned it on. We got to let it warm up. Fans haven't even kicked on yet. But it seemed to heat up real fast. It'd heat up before I even get out of the neighborhood. And then it would get just above, kind of get just above that third line. So like where it is right now is where it normally is. But see how it kind of pops around? So I'm thinking there might be a little bit of air left in the system. But this is kind of a new one. So we'll let it warm up, get up to temperature, and we'll go ahead and bleed it. So it seems to be running a little cooler after bleeding, and it's not jumping around. I actually kind of just flicked that a little bit. See it kind of creeping up, just sitting at the light here. But it's definitely a little cooler, and it's not jumping around. Let's get up to gear here. There we go. So you can see it's kind of sitting below that line now instead of above it. So we'll just kind of drive it a little bit here and see what happens. But see how it's cooling down now that I'm moving, but it's not getting above that third line anymore, and it's not jumping around. It was almost like it was kind of sticking a little bit, like it would stick, and then when it would drop, the temperature would drop, the needle wouldn't drop, so then it would raise up. So I am gonna say I think we're okay for now. We'll see. There was a little bit of air in the system, not much, but a little bit. There were a couple of gurgles here and there, but nothing major. So we'll just keep an eye on it. So we ran into a interesting issue. All of a sudden, the radio stopped working in the car. Boy was driving it, and it just stopped working. Don't know why. And what we ended up doing was we ended up looking in here, and number 7, clock, interior light, radio, and cigarette lighter. So we tried plugging the underglow in, and the underglow didn't work. So sure enough, I looked at number 7, and number 7 was blown. Right? So that's really weird. Why all of a sudden would just start blowing the fuse? So put another fuse in, turn the radio on, and he noticed that when he went to do something on the radio, everything shut off again. So, me being the genius that I am, or just lucky, we also have a 2001 Beetle, which I replaced the stereo. And I had purchased the same stereo for this car that I had for that car because it had been working fine. So I took the stereo out of that car, put it into the 944, replaced the fuse, and all of a sudden it's working just fine. So I think there's something wrong with the stereo itself, which is really kind of weird. So whenever he went to try to do something shorted inside the radio and just blew that fuse. Because I haven't had an issue with the stereo in the 944 since I put the other one in. So, kind of weird, right? I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a stereo going bad and making you blow fuses, but I would imagine it could happen. So, we'll just drive around a little bit more. And then also, ran into an issue with the emergency brake. Went to drive it last night, and the emergency brake was stuck on this side. So I tried, up and down, up and down, and up and down, didn't work. Tried to get it in gear and move back and forth, and you could feel the side over there tried to lift up, and it was trying to go. It was this side that was stuck. So I got the jack underneath, and I got the wheel, and I pushed the wheel, and all of a sudden I heard something pop, like it finally released. So something had gotten caught up underneath in here. So we'll have to see if that happens again. That's the first time that's happened. But I just took it out for a ride, and I put the emergency brake on and off and on and off and on and off, and it works just fine. So I'm not exactly sure what that was. I don't know. Maybe he tried to drive the car while it was still engaged, and it jammed it up a little bit somehow. I don't know. But we'll keep an eye on that as well. But that was a new one as well. But as you can see, the stereo from the other car is in here, and it seems to be working fine. We took it out the other day and made some changes and things like that. So just a couple of weird, quirky things that kind of happened with it. But he's still driving it every day. So it's holding up pretty well. All right, well, the fuse blew again. The radio worked for like 3 days, and then it blew the fuse again. So now we're going to have to start taking some of this stuff out and see if we can figure out exactly what is going on with this. So I'll let you know. All right, well, so the fuse that's on this runs the radio, the clock, the cigarette lighter, and then also the interior light, which it's hooked up, but I don't have a bulb in it. So I went through and pulled the radio, pulled all the connections, double checked them, rewrapped them. The clock light had come out of the clock. I don't know if that was maybe touching something, so I took that apart, took that off, checked all the wiring back there, put the clock light back in, started it up. Radio worked fine. And then I noticed the speaker was out. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Kind of looks a little charred too, doesn't it? So we will repair that. I'm not sure. I think I will, because I had some extra and it was down in there. And I'm wondering if it was getting caught on that window or something. But I wonder if that has something to do with it. So we will fix that and try again. All right, so we took it out for a drive. It didn't get hot. It stayed on. So I'm wondering if it was, I've got to assume it was that short that was going out in that speaker and that metal touching got the stereo hot and it would blow the fuse. So, we'll have to just keep driving it and see. But yeah, I think that will take care of that. And then also I could take off the clock light because I fixed that while I was in there. Well, here we are again. The fuse blew again. So I drove it for like 10 minutes. Everything was fine. Radio didn't get hot or anything. So then I was out again, and we were probably about 10, 15 minutes in maybe. And all of a sudden I heard the fuse pop. I touched the radio. Radio wasn't hot. So I don't know why this keeps popping. So I'm going to check the wires again here. I'll check them on the other door because I didn't check those. And if that's not the case, I think what I'm going to do is the fuse that's popping is the constant power. So I think I will just wire that directly to the battery. The radio has a fuse in it itself. So if anything needs to, it'll pop there. But then at least we can see if that fuse stays. We know it was the radio that's causing the issue. If it pops again, then I've got to look at either the clock, the lighter, or the interior light. So we'll just check those few things. Okay. So after much ado, I think I figured out what was going on. So I pulled the stereo out, disconnected the stereo completely. Well, first I went for a ride. Again, another blown fuse. Then I saw this back here, and this had some exposed wires. I thought, well, you know what? Maybe it was hitting this because something with the backlight hatch and the interior light in the back. Well, then I put another fuse in, and I went out for a ride, and it didn't even make it down the street, and it blew. So came back, pulled out the stereo, disconnected the stereo, tried to put the fuse in, and it just melted as soon as I put it in. So I came back here, and those wires were sitting down in there. So I taped those up, and as soon as I did, I was able to put the fuse in. So I think these wires back here were touching. The ground and the power wire were touching. Somehow they finally got to touching. So what I did was what I should have done in the first place with the radio is I connected it directly to the battery because that's what the instructions say. I don't know why I didn't do that to begin with. So that's no longer even on that fuse. So I'm hoping that's it. I'm hoping we're done with this little problem. So I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to go for a ride. I'm going to see if that fuse blows. But at least the stereo will stay on now because it's hooked up directly to the battery. It's not going through that fuse. Like I said, the stereo's got a 10 amp fuse in it anyway. So if anything happens, it'll blow that fuse. But we'll just get this cleaned up or go for a ride.